All right. So the themes in early modern art, okay, and that means well, that's modern art from the early period of modern art, not early modern like Europe before from the French Revolution. So what are we seeing? Well, it's a time of great uncertainty and insecurity, right? There's all this new technology. We have mass media now. Things are changing. Mainly, though, we had the destruction of World War I, and we had, for the first time now, people in big numbers are thinking, well, maybe our governments don't know what's best for us, or maybe mankind isn't always going to be progressing. Maybe things aren't always going to be getting better, because by and large, up until World War I, especially in Western Europe, things had just been improving, right, and at an improvingly rapid pace. So people now are uncertain about the future and they're insecure about their place in it. So we're going to see that in art. And then a stronger version of that is called disillusionment. And hopefully you guys don't feel this way, but it's normal sometimes when you're young to feel disillusioned. And that's when you're kind of thinking, hey, wait a minute, people have been lying to me. Things aren't the way they said they were. I can't trust people. That's disillusionment. Okay, and that can be difficult as well. But again, because of the death and horror of the First World War, some people are thinking, you know what? I don't trust the government. I don't believe what they're saying. I don't believe organized religion. I don't believe any of it. They reject it. Now, one thing you learned about was Freud, and we talked about is the subconscious mind, the power of the id. Okay, people are really ready to hear about this in the wake of the First World War. That mankind is not perhaps the most rational creature and is governed by things that are in his unconscious mind. So artists are going to be exploring that. Overt sexuality. You saw a lot of discussion of sex in the Freud video. Okay, people are starting to openly talk about sex and its impact on people and the human psyche and its power in society. And so art is going to begin to deal with sexual themes more overtly. And then key is, recovering from the shock of the First World War. A lot of people are going to be portraying or responding to the incredible violence of the First World War, and 10 million soldiers killed, and just industrial scale death and destruction. So violence and savagery, that man again isn't perhaps a decent creature, right? That's going to be key. And then we're going to get these three different themes. The first one is the first to come about. It starts actually a little before the First World War, but it belongs as a modern art movement. And it's called Cubism. And it's pretty easy to understand why they call it Cubism. Essentially, it's taking images that we normally see every day and breaking them apart into their most basic shapes. Okay? So here, this is Georges Braque, woman with a guitar, and it was a woman sitting playing a guitar, and in his mind, he deconstructed that whole image, disassembled it, and put the pieces back together in a different form, okay, in a more abstract form. And so you can see, here's part of the guitar, right? Okay, and here are the fingers on the fretboard, but they're down here instead of up here. There's some printing here. We can see 4 or 5 different angles of the woman's face at the same time, okay? They're trying to break with how you see things normally in your waking life and look at things in different ways, okay? Paul Cézanne, another famous cubist, said basically that the artist should look at things as the cylinder, the sphere, and the cone, okay? Basically, break images down. What are their simple things? What are you, if you look at a man riding a horse and you break that down into the most simple shapes, what are you really looking at? Okay, so that's what the cubist is trying to capture. Okay? And here, the most famous of the cubists, and he transcends several art periods, but that's the Spaniard Pablo Picasso. Okay, and here is his version of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, or the Women of Avignon, which had been a famous painting earlier on, a famous series of nudes from the classical period, right? And here's his take on it. Now, keep in mind, Picasso can paint beautifully. He can paint things in any form he wants, but he's trying to break the images down into something different, okay? And so this is the Cubist version of the Women of Avignon, all right? And you can see their bodies are broken into these dominant shapes, very much different angles and curves. And then two of the women have non-human faces transposed onto them. Okay, so we're seeing people representing images and things in a way that you don't see with the naked eye. Okay, they're inserting themselves as the artist into what they are painting. The briefest, but I think maybe most fun of these is the Dadaist movement, okay? And Dada, not Dada, you know, like babies say, but Dada, and especially in German, means nothing. It has no meaning at all, okay? And these people are very much disillusioned by their experience of the war and post-war society, and they are beginning to say that nothing has any meaning. And so basically, nothing is sacred, nothing deserves your respect, nothing, you know, is what it seems, and everything is meaningless. And so they're going to mock the rules, the people in charge, okay, the power structures. They're just going to make fun of stuff and make it look ridiculous. Okay? And in fact, one of the things that they think doesn't have any meaning and should be mocked is art. So, in kind of a weird twist, they're going to make art that's trying to destroy art. Okay, so they're saying nothing has meaning, including art. And so they want their works to hang in a museum next to great classics, and they want their works to make you realize that none of it has any meaning. Okay, and essentially they're responding to, as I said, the destruction of World War I, and then the societal collapse, particularly in Germany, which we'll get to next week, of traditional values and traditional morals. And I say none of it means anything. And this is also called nihilism. Okay, if you're a nihilist, you don't believe in anything, right? And it's like an even more extreme version of existentialism that we've talked about in the past, right? Where there's not a greater good, there's not a greater story, there's not a higher power. Ultimately, things will just cease to exist and become nothingness. And so that's the nihilist, which is shown in Dadaism. And this painting by Georges Gros, it's almost a little too recognizable and organized to be Dadaism, but it's definitely dealing with all the Dadaist themes. Here you have the war veteran, right? He's lost his arm, but he looks like he's, you know, hasn't eaten well. He's unemployed. Society's not taking care of him. Contrast that with the fat bourgeoisie middle class businessman with his briefcase and his starched collar. Okay, and then over here we have the secret agent of the government spying on them. Here's the nameless, faceless proletarian, the factory worker, and here's the factory in the back. This is almost too recognizable to be Dada, but Gros was a Dadaist. This next example is more spot on Dada, and this is by Raoul Haussmann. It's called ABCD. 1924-25 is when he made it, right in the heart of the 1920s. All right, and here is a newspaper clipping with his name on it. Okay, we have this face, you know, in some kind of pain or anger, and it's just a collage. All right, here we have a gestating or woman, okay, a cross section, and all these different typefaces. It's essentially, what is it? Okay, he would argue it's nothing. Okay, so you know, if you remember, I'm sure during sometime in public school, you had to make a collage about yourself or about, you know, a certain topic or a scientific process. Well, you probably wouldn't get a very good grade on this one because it's not about anything. But that's the point of Dadaism. Okay? So we have Cubism, Dadaism, and then the one that is really closely related to what you've just been looking at, and that's surrealism. Okay? Surrealism is beyond real. That's what sur means, surrealism. Okay? And it's the longest. Dada is the shortest. Surrealism and Cubism last much longer. Surrealism goes all the way into the early World War II period. Right? And many of the artists who created the Surrealist movement initially had been in the Dadaist movement and went beyond it. And essentially, the Surrealist is, like many people, including Freud, concerned with what's going on in our subconscious mind. What is motivating us? What's happening in the part of ourselves that we don't show to people in polite society? Okay, what's happening in the id, right? You learned about the id. And so they're trying to paint things from our unconscious mind. Okay? And so it's essentially going to look like things from dreams, right? Or nightmares. All right, so here is the elephant celebs, and it's a large mechanical looking thing that also looks like the back end of an elephant. And is this a tail? Is this a trunk? You know, is this the neck? And this is the head. The head is a distorted cow's head, right? And here we have a dismembered leg, and here we have a human torso with the head removed. All sorts of really strange looking stuff that you would not see coming down the street during your normal daily life. Thank goodness, right? Right. So surrealism is the dream world, the unconscious mind. Right. The most famous of the surrealists is Salvador Dali, and you may have seen this, a very famous painting, which a lot of people have called just, melting clocks, but it's called The Persistence of Memory from 1931. And remember Einstein, we talked super briefly about it, but in Einstein's theory of relativity, even time isn't constant. So nothing is constant. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing. And so here we have these dripping clocks. We have this, and what is it? Is it an animal? Is it part of a plant? Is it a human organ? It's almost inscrutable what it is. And then we have this odd landscape back here, okay, with the cliffs going into the sea. So very surrealistic, very dreamlike. Okay. So you have Cubism, Dadaism, and Surrealism. And your job is going to be to tell the difference. All right, you're going to have, well, there's 11 samples. Let me go over the assignment here real quick. And we'll do the first one together. So you have in the PDF file, you have all those notes I just did, and then there are 11 individual paintings. Right? So on this Google Doc, you're going to write super briefly about each painting. Right? So let's do the first one together, and this will be number 1 on your sheet. Okay, so see, they each have big yellow number right there. So make sure you number it so we know which one we're talking about. All right. So when we look at this painting, let me open up the chat. All right. What are we looking at here? Someone say in the chat, is it Dadaism, Cubism, or Surrealism? Good. Yeah. Well, I agree with Conrad and Iris and Isabel. Daniel, don't worry about it. In a sense, I mean, you're not wrong in that it's hard to get any meaning out of it. But this is Cubism, all right. And so all you would do for this one is you would write a sentence. I believe this is Cubist, or I believe this is Cubism. Period. There's one sentence, and then one sentence of why you believe that. So you would say, I believe this is Cubism, period. I think it's Cubist because it is composed of very simple, blocky shapes. Or I believe it's Cubism because it takes an image and breaks it down into its basic components. All right. So that's all you have to do. 2 sentences for each one. All right. And if you get it right, don't worry about getting it wrong. If you get it wrong, as long as you say what it is and why you think it's that, you'll still get full credit. But if everyone you get right, you'll get extra credit. So this is a good chance to earn some extra credit. Okay, so there's 3 points possible for each one, and one of those points is extra credit. And this one you already nailed, right? So you got a sentence saying what it is, a sentence saying why you think that, and then you got it right. You got cubism, all right? So that's 3 points right there. All right, and the rest of them, they're all numbered. So on your own, you're going to look at number 2, which I talked about this one in the notes last week. If you were paying attention, you already know the answer to that one too. So there's another 3 points. Number 3, all the way up through number 11. All right, Cubism, Dadaism, Surrealism, and why. Okay, and that goes in that Google Doc. This shouldn't be that hard. I hope you have fun with it. You're learning more about art than a lot of people these days know. And shouldn't take a long time. And so all you have for this week, you have the invention write-up from the weekend, you have guided reading 15, section 1, and you have this. So should no reason to be behind in this unit at all by the weekend. All right, and then Monday during our short session, I'll go over these and we can discuss them briefly, and I'll give you the answers and who painted it and et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that's what you're working on. And then next week, we're going to get into the political stuff, the rise of dictators, and the dark consequences of the 20s. Okay, so I'll be here if you have questions about it. Otherwise, just don't be afraid, charge ahead, and identify that art.